All right. I think we are live. If you guys could shoot me a comment to confirm that we are live, I am going to post this really quick. Okay, hopefully for sure is that we're live. I came a couple minutes early. We have been working furiously around the clock to get ready for this event. It is an event David and I have kind of like talked about some of these content and the subject matter for a long time. David has entrusted me with being available to talk about some like these really, really, really important issues. With being available, so I'm getting about this is like the episode of Spaceballs. Really important issues with being available. I'm like watching the video in the video. All right, we should be good now. You guys probably heard me talking about myself. I just had to grab that link. It warned me before not to have it open or to mute it when you go to. Let's see. Let me get all the messages, all the links out there. I'm gonna send David a text in a second to make sure he's good. It's been an insane day, like absolutely insane day. Thanks for bearing with me, you guys. Okay, okay, good. The echo is gone. Okay, cool. I know that was weird, right? It was like literally like the part of the Spaceballs movie where they go and they watch themselves in the monitor. Like, when does this happen in the movie? Like now. Wait, now? No, now. But what happened then? Oh, I was back then, but now we're in now. And they're like, what happens in the future? Like, I don't know. We haven't got to that part of the movie. Such a great part of. There's almost no not great part of Spaceballs. Oh man, all the merchandising when they go like into the cave and he shows them like all the Spaceballs merchandise, like the Spaceballs flamethrower. It's the best. If anyone has never seen Spaceballs, please. Yes, when will they be? When will then be now? Oh, it's so good. Spaceballs is so good. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. Hang out. Feel welcome. And I'm in the chat room. Oh my gosh, did David go to the link? Oh my gosh, I'm gonna email David a link to the panel. David is supposed to be backstage. It sounds like David is on your side. David's all like, I'm watching on YouTube. This is great, guys. Let me get David a link. Thank you everybody for your patience. Going to be a great night. All right. All right. Anime. Okay, thank you everybody for bearing with me. Let me go get David onto my side. And also I have like huge announcements coming. I'm super pumped. Okay, there's that. And then let's go over here. Let me send David a link to backstage. Invite David. Send an email. I think I'm still live even though I can't see all of you. Oh my gosh, why is everything saying that there's an error? Everything has an error. Everything has an error. This is, of course, it's been our day today. I don't know how everyone's day has gone, but it has been a freaking day. I'm pretty sure that's David's email address. I'm pretty sure I know David's email address off the top of my head. Yep, that's it. All right, guys, let me get David a link. Boom. Thank you for everybody. Just tell everything that you have. Oh man, I need some IT. I need some tech support. What's up, 8-bit Nate? What is up? Even in the future, nothing works. Oh my gosh. Yes, I have a new announcement, Alex. You wait. I'm super pumped. I wish I had somebody that I could be like, let me call tech support. I'm the tech support. I am the tech support. All right. There's one tag that I need. Is it? I think that's what it is. Hello, David's texting me. Oh my gosh. I sent you an email with the link. Where's that emoji where you're like, I'm sure David's watching us all. Oh man. There it is. I got the right emoji. Oh, thank you, Alex. Thank you for being patient. I heard gay, so I'm here. Amy, there's definitely going to be so much gay tonight. Sharka, I am excited about tonight. Thank you. We added, do you see? Where's my finger? This is for Chris Waycamp. Oh man, let me see if I can get a better angle you guys can see. It's the goofy grin where he's like, where they announced that Momo and Todoroki are gonna fight Aizawa for their final exam, and he's like, it's like so goofy. We call that Toga cute. That's for Leah. Leah's a good friend of mine. Oh my gosh, where's my finger? Right there. This is for Jamie. Right there. We call that Mount Lady wink. She's winking. Oh yes, I see a little leprechaun backstage. Yay!
I clicked the wrong link from the calendar thing.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny.
Well, fashionably late, darlings.
Always. Let me make sure that I have all my posties. Where's the Colorworld VIP group in case folks want to watch from there? David, tonight should be a magical night for lots of reasons. I want
so much glitter.
So much glitter. And let me tell you, one of the most exciting things for me is, in fact, let me just because this is like 2020 and we can do things like this. All right.
Yes, I can see the chat, Alex. Hello. I should probably put on glasses.
Please feel free to talk to the chat while I bring this up.
Hello, chat. Oh, they're talking about the Love Stage poster. That's legit, y'all. I actually bought another one. But I got it and I found out it was bogus. So
really?
Yeah, it was bogus. And it was actually, if I remember correctly, it was part of a big haul, but it was the Ohio guys, I think, who gave me the good one. Like they ordered it off of their special like connection on Japan.
Okay.
Christian Ocampo's the best. The best. They gave me a Tata Never Falls in Love poster too, which is my heart.
That's your jam?
Yeah.
Wonder why this is
Hi, everybody.
Oh, okay. I wonder what of the things it's telling me in the VIP group. It's telling me that I'm not. Like something went wrong on their end. Facebook is telling me. All right.
I also have a hate to resume my hero banner, but that is totally bogus. So, just so you know, I'm going to own up to that right now.
It's one of the things that I'm going to help with, David, is going and, I had that conversation earlier about going and getting those licenses. And you're right. There's too much available that shouldn't be out there that I want to make sure that the creators of those fine stories receive what they should for doing it.
Yeah. Amen, man. Amen.
Yeah. So we're going to fix all that. Let's get Matt Laney Wink back there so people can
Brilliant,
see.
Bradley Kelly.
Thank you, sir. All right, good. It looks like the crowd. So it still looks pretty. it is pretty awesome. And I'm happy that those fans have found some things, but we're going to give them more things, shiny things.
What's true? There's very little swag available for these shows.
Yeah.
I mean, so yeah, I think it behooves us both, Brad, to provide some for the world.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure. The need is there. The want is there. The desire is there. So I have had a fabulous time getting ready for this panel, David. And I revealed yesterday that I see Love Stage and Yamada's First Time on the same kind of timeline.
Yeah.
Of like things that we should make young people watch to like, you know what I mean? To encourage them to talk about who they are.
Listen, anime's got a lot of important lessons, babe. You know what I mean? There are a lot of lessons in there. There's some really bad lessons too, but there's some really good ones.
Okay, so let's one thing that occurred to me when I started Love Stage. I didn't know what to expect. I just
did you watch the whole thing, Brad?
Oh, everything.
Did you see the OVA?
No.
Did you get it? The OVA is only available on Blu-ray. You have to have the Blu-ray to see the OVA, but the OVA is extra magical. So you should all go buy the Blu-ray and watch the OVA.
Okay.
It's magical.
I'll ask my kids if that's, I would imagine, somebody in chat tell us if a PlayStation 4, I would imagine, can it play a Blu-ray? Is that a thing?
Yeah.
Okay. I haven't bought a physical media item.
I know.
Yeah.
I don't even own a disc player anymore, and I've got I just moved, and look at this. You see all these DVDs and Blu-rays.
They're everywhere.
Everything that's in the front is all the anime, but I didn't have enough shelf space, so all of my commercial, regular DVDs, they're all behind that.
Oh man!
And so I've got this whole thing full of discs, and I can't play them. What are you going to do? That's now they're keepsakes.
Fantastic. I went to the place that we live now in America is so small, David. They have a video store.
What?
A real walk-in.
What video store is it?
Family Video is the only one that's left that I know.
Family Video. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Wow.
So,
I worked at a Blockbuster. It was awful.
What made working on a Blockbuster awful?
It's just, they made me an assistant manager.
They should.
I mean, nobody told them, so they made me an assistant manager. And I think it was actually before I got the assistant manager. Like the bottom level job was customer service representative.
Sure. Yeah.
The second level was customer relations coordinator, which is a very fancy way of saying I was the guy who had to go down the list every day and call for the late videos. And nobody is more hated than that guy.
The telemarketer who let's see, your late car payment. I'm trying to think of who.
Yeah, like the bill collectors give us.
Yeah,
or maybe a little bit more reviled, but yeah, nobody likes that guy. Nobody enjoys that phone call. I tried to maintain my sense of humor, but
oh man, that's crazy.
Or like applying fines to people's accounts because they didn't rewind. That's how we spent our lives. I was paid to apply a 50-cent fee on people's accounts when they didn't rewind the VHS tape.
That's amazing. That's things that kids being born right now, literally have. Does anybody does that even mean anything? I can look at chat to see if this conversation even makes sense to they're like, what do you rewind?
What's a VHS?
Like a disc. It's like a circle, and you just do you remember?
This is what they used to look like, darlings.
Oh, there you go.
This is what movies used to come on. Like an old, and you'd do there's where the tape is, it's actual tape. And if you wanted to record on it, just like an old cassette, if you wanted to take a commercial VHS tape, you had to this one was blank when I bought it. So the commercial ones come with this tab off. And if you wanted to record on that, you would stuff that with Kleenex or cover it with tape or something. Yeah. And then you could record your thing. What is this even?
That is so badass. Oh, what tape is that?
Oh yeah, I was just looking. It's an interview I did for a play on like a cable access show or something.
That
Cute.
sounds awesome. Like, boy has, look at this. Think about that interview, and then think about this interview. However many years later, is the world has changed.
Yeah, the wave rolls on, baby.
Yeah, for sure.
And now nobody even like cares about Blu-rays anymore. It's all digital. It's on the cloud.
Yeah, I guess I'm glad that I didn't really dive into physical. I think there came a point where Rachel and I just moved too much, and she was like, "Dude, we got."
Yeah.
The other day, she threw out all the cases. She's like, "Yeah,
Sacrilege."
I was like, what?
That is sacrilege.
She's like, you're never pulling these out. They've been in a box. You
See, there's the anime girl. Yes, I see. She's talking about only watching VHS at grandma's. That's the only time anybody watches VHS anymore. That's the only access anyone has to VHS is when they go to grandma's.
Yeah. So awesome.
Yes, manga, Love Stage and Backstage, and then a couple of copies I have of Hitorijime and Kase-san and Bloom Into You, trying to feature the babies.
Yeah, speaking of, apparently there's a license request right there.
Yeah.
So don't worry, Maggie. David and I together as a team, we're going to make all the people happy.
Mags, it's going to get so gay in here. We just got to warm up.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have to stretch.
I'm trying to download all those pictures that you sent to me, but it's not, like, I'm failing miserable. I think I was going to post. Oh, I wanted to send out this email with a link to everybody to get like straight to this panel since we're live now. So let me. Oh, and of course now it's like all right. It's just not even gonna. I think that's the next I need.
The curse of technology. It is a blessing and a curse.
It is tough. Well, so I want to like get this done so I can just show you what it is that I've been working all day and why, what has my goal for today ended up so different, David, than what actually happened with my day. How was you, like, did you experience any like insanity today, or was yours a little bit more?
No, I was really under control. I actually had a session this morning for Funimation for Plunderer.
Oh,
yeah.
Good anime.
Still rolling on that one.
Good.
And it's really cool. I don't know. Probably all you guys know about this, but since this whole, COVID-19 thing, Funimation, actually, I'm just going to sing their praises for a minute, because they did an utterly extraordinary thing. I will tell you. What they did was they shipped, they chose a couple of shows, and I think the list is going to be expanding soon.
Yeah.
After this little proof of concept, but they chose a couple of shows. I think at first it was probably My Hero Academia, and then a couple of others.
Yep.
And the actors involved in those shows, Funimation went and put together a kit for every one of those actors, which is, has some equipment and a mic and like some stuff. And they gave one to each actor involved in those shows, and we just have it in our house, and that's how we record. And then, we're on the line in a chat room with an engineer and a director, and usually also a producer. But like, Funimation put in, these kits are not cheap. It's like there's equipment in there, and they just, and of course we're not using them and then handing them back. What would that do for quarantine, right? Like, yes, I just spit all over this microphone. Here, give it to someone else.
Yeah.
So, we keep the kits until the whole thing is done. It's just like, that's the most novel and conscientious approach that I have heard of from any industry, any facet of the industry. Like, I can't. Funimation blew my mind when they did that.
I am glad to hear that. They rolled out the red carpet, and I think what's impressive is to do that for the voice actors, because this is all of your livelihood for so many people. Writing, acting, and directing is right. And then two, to do that for the fan base.
Yeah.
Right, because it's like their decision affects every side of the coin. Like everybody
Absolutely.
benefits from their decision to do what they did. And
Yeah,
that
it's I mean, it's absolutely trendsetting. I wish some other studios would catch on to that. But yeah.
unnamed people listening in the universe. Okay. All right. I have set out the final reminder. Thank you everybody for your patience while it has been a slow start, but let me show you what I don't want to say sidetracked, because to be honest, what you're about to see is going to be has been my focus ever since I guess decided to go this route. So let me bring it up off screen, and then I'm going to show everybody. So share screen. And then I'm going to show everybody what's that and what has taken my focus. It hasn't taken my focus off anything, but it has added to what has motivated me to do what we're doing tonight. So this is the Trevor Project. And the Trevor Project is committed to being there for the LGBTQ plus community when you are in crisis. So right there, there's the list of the community who they served. I wonder if I can pause.
They're an absolutely amazing organization. Trevor Project is amazing.
Have you had any interaction with those folks?
Not directly.
Okay.
No, but I know that I've had, since I started working on these gay titles, I've been approached by a lot of fans who are considering coming out to their families or struggling with these issues. So the Trevor Project actually has an amazing little handbook, like digital handbook, that you can just go to their site and access. And it's extraordinary. And they're really for any LGBTQ IA plus. I call it the Rainbow Tribe. The letters get very confusing. But they are there to serve, and they're an extraordinary organization, and they're a very conscientious organization, and I hope to work with them more directly in the future.
So let me show you, David, how I think tonight springboards into that. If check this, let's see, boom, and then I'll do this, and then it will say, where do I want to point? I believe in you, Internet. Chrome tab, and check this out. So you'll see right next to you, David, we have decided to launch a fundraiser. Tonight is going to kick off a fundraiser for the Trevor Project, because in all of our conversations that you and I have had about how important this mission is to find, create, make a safe place for people to belong, I came across the Trevor Project. I think is some content from Ellen, to be honest. I think she had Trevor's parents on the show, and I became aware of the Trevor Project. And so we created this. And what has taken me so much time today is that we've been working with Tixer behind the scenes to make it so that fans, folks, people that want to contribute can contribute as little as $1.99. But Tixer literally has been working all day to adjust the fee structure.
Wow.
To account for these very small donation amounts, so that people can, even if you just have a little bit, even if you just have $1.99, they've made it so that your money is going to the Trevor Project and not necessarily to like administrative stuff.
Yeah. That's Brad. That's extraordinary.
Well,
that's just extraordinary.
I'm happy to announce that on all amounts below $10, Tixer has dramatically reduced the fees, created a fee structure just for us to be able to make helping people accessible.
Oh,
and, I had meant to spend more time promoting, but I thought this is the real, this is it. This is going to save somebody's life. The Trevor Project is going to save. The statistics are that LGBTQ people that are struggling they think about things like suicide 3 times more than a heterosexual teen in the same situation.
Yeah, 30% more likely to consider or attempt suicide.
Yeah. And so that is what has consumed my day. And I felt like, how can I, like, look, anime is important, and the stories that we're telling have allowed people to find themselves in anime. Representation is very real and it's super powerful. But I wanted to find some way, like, if people are going to come watch us, like, what's the next step? And to me, that next step was to make sure that if they felt moved, if they felt passionate, that they should, keep buying the titles, buy the Blu-rays from, that you've worked on, buy the streaming services to keep the content going, but then also, like, real people that are in crisis. I called, I probably could have searched for a number to their administrative office, but it was their number. Their crisis line is everywhere, all over their website.
Yeah.
I was like, let me just dial there. And it was like, man, they're ready for you. They're ready. And it was like, I didn't want to take too much time because I know, I was on hold, which means that, like, somebody who really needs the Trevor Project it was on hold behind me. And so, like, really quickly, I was, like, hey man, this is what I am. You can get rid of me really quickly. I just need to know, like, who do I talk to? And he gave me the number, and they emailed me. They emailed me graphics and everything. And it's just an incredible organization. So I just want everybody to know that's out there how much David and I appreciate that you've taken your time. And we will get to a lot of fun stuff and a lot of serious stuff. But to me, I wanted to make sure that everybody understands, like, lives are at stake, and the Trevor Project is there to help us move this mission forward so that people feel comfortable in their own skin being who they are.
That's just extraordinary, Brad. You blow me away, man. You blow me away.
Well,
you're a brilliant darling, and you're not bad for a straight guy.
I appreciate that. That was one of my favorite comments when I was in a hangout. A lot of times we get to hang out with people before they get, like, thrown into a room with you guys. And Joey was like, tell me about this thing with David. And he's like, man, I'm straight as an arrow. I was like, David, I have 5 kids. I am married to a woman who I adore, and I have made many children with that woman. I'm as straight as they come, but
yeah, it doesn't get much straighter, does it?
But because of that, I feel like, so let's start there then. I've heard the term ally before, and I'm of the belief that in 2020, you can't just be not racist, you have to be anti-racist. You know what I mean? Like, you can't not be anti-gay, you have to be, like, I don't know, a pro-gay, but, like, in order to fight all of the lies, all of the myth, all of the things that have persisted for so many years that are just flat out wrong, that you have to be willing to step in and fight on behalf of people that don't look like you. And I'm 6 feet tall. My parents had a $200,000 house growing up. I have 3 bachelor's degrees. I'm married to the same woman for 18 years. My kids, not a single one of them was born without a disability other than the ADHD that I pass on to them. I have a lot of privilege. So the only thing that I can think to do with that privilege is to take all the power that I have and start handing it out, and to giving it to anybody that doesn't look like me. And so what does being an ally look like? Is that even a real term? Did somebody, like, for somebody that you are a gay man, what does it look like for one of your friends to be properly supportive? What does that look like for somebody who's straight?
I can tell you, Brad, it's exceptionally rare. I've in my life, I've circulated in and among a lot of people. I've had some very close friends. The difficulty in describing a situation like the one I grew up in, and certainly even my experience of I grew up gay in the 80s in Texas. Under, like, Reaganomics at the height of the AIDS crisis. There weren't that many more unfriendly times. to be a gay person. And but even still, even though I understand the sort of the plight of the minority, if you will, from that angle, I can't understand what a Latino American goes through, or an African American goes through, or like I can't directly relate. I can't even really directly relate to what a trans person or a lesbian person goes through. You know, all those experiences are quite different. And you know, the thing that they share is this sort of the sense of otherness.
Yes.
You know? And we all kind of have that, and it becomes so deeply ingrained in us that like we always feel that sense of otherness. You know, even if I'm at a gay function, I feel a sense of otherness. Yeah, like it's you know, it's I mean, I have my own hangups. I've always tried to avoid large gatherings of like-minded individuals. You know what I mean? But yeah, to have, I mean, the fact is, the things that we fight for equality and for recognition and for an end to ostracization and alienation by the majority, it just doesn't work if it's just us ringing the bell. We need people like you. We need people who are on the other side, who are part of the majority, if you will, to at least comprehend that our experience is different from theirs, and that our experience is valid, and that our struggles are not all necessary. You know, that society kind of makes us jump through a lot of flaming hoops, and you know, it's always been the case. It's still the case. You know, things aren't. I mean, I'm sorry to say it, but things aren't that much better now than they were in the 80s. Man. You know, they're not that much better. Not for my tribe.
Right.
And probably, you know, I would imagine probably not that much better for the African American, or particularly now for the Latino American, with all this new venom coming out of DC for the last couple of years. It just doesn't work unless people who are on the other side of those tracks, who have no reason to relate to us or comprehend our plight, actually decide to do so. And you know, I've had some very close friends who are straight, who are really just kind of dismissive about it. I've had people say things to me like, "Well, yeah, Dave, but you can pass for straight, so what difference does it make?" And I'm like, I will strangle you. Or I've had friends, like you know, I've tried to describe what it's like being a young person and being being gay, and sort of just starting to know that about yourself, and hearing all the gay jokes in the locker room. You know, it's like, you know, and I've had friends respond to that by saying, "Listen, I understand. I was a sensitive kid and people thought I was gay all the time, so I totally get it." No, you don't. And here's the difference. Like, the difference is, if you're just a regular kid who's going to grow up to be straight, and you're in the locker room and you fall down on the playground and cry, and someone calls you a gay slur, that's going to hurt just the same way it would if they called you any other name.
Right.
But if you're, you know, the kid to worry about is the kid who's in the corner trying to be quiet in that locker room, trying not to draw any attention to themselves, knowing that they are not only the thing that those kids are really making fun of, but they're also the weapon that they're using to make fun of kids. You're not just the target, you're also the weapon. And it's like there's just no adequate way to quantify that. And it's an experience that so few people can really comprehend if they haven't had it. And you can't have had it if you were a straight Christian white kid. You know what I mean? Like, you don't know. So we need those folks. We need those folks to understand, and at least understand that there's parts they can't understand, and to recognize that that experience it's unnecessary for kids to go through these things. It's purely ridiculous. So thank you, Brad. That was a long way of answering your question, but brevity has never been my gift.
Well, and that's why I went ahead and gave us 90 minutes. Mm-hmm. I know us well enough to know that, like,
because we've met.
Because the idea of being a weapon first occurred to me when Trevor Noah is the guy that I consume a lot of content from Trevor Noah. And he has a great stand-up where he talks about a woman's vagina and the idea that you would call someone the name, the slur of the slang name of a woman's vagina. And he's like, gentlemen, can we be honest about the characteristics of a real vagina in which the women next to you have all pushed things the size of watermelons out of, and if somebody kicks you in the balls, you're on the ground. So I got to tell you, from an anatomy perspective, your penis is way inferior to a vagina. Yeah. You flick it, you're done. Okay. She's gonna move a person out of it, and she's gonna get up the next day and be like, where's my breakfast? Yeah.
It's like there's an old Robin Williams joke, the late and great Robin Williams, who said something about men saying that they can understand the pain of childbirth. He's like, no, not unless you've tried passing a bowling ball.
Yeah. So to me, that was the first time that I had it like clicked, like, oh crap, like we're using entire groups of people as an insult. Hey man, that's gay. Hey man, you're a, like, I don't even, like, that's not even part of my vocabulary. Like in our family, we just don't like call people that, but like it's been acceptable for far too long to weaponize entire groups of people and to make fun of somebody and say like, oh, you're like this entire group of people. So that I hope if there's one, if there's a small takeaway for a lot of folks, that's, I have several employees that are like, I will talk about like the things you say, the words you say. We've been talking about says versus says. We've been talking about fundraiser versus fundraising. Like, this one's a noun. This one, like, and the reason I'm so nitpicky, words really matter.
They really do. Yeah, you're right.
I mean, as a writer, I would imagine you have an insane amount of choices when you're working with an English title and you come up against a Japanese concept. Like you, David Wald, has to decide what will become the English representation of this idea. Like, talk to what it's like to take because you went out and you searched for LGBTQ plus titles in the anime universe to then adapt. Like, what is your process like? How did you find them? Like, tell me about the script writing.
Oh, well, I mean, it all started with Bulat. We spoke about this briefly yesterday.
Yeah.
Pardon me. Yeah, it was, and again, I'll just sort of review. When I started working in anime, I did not know much about anime. I didn't come into it as a fan.
Right.
So when I was a kid in the 80s, there was no anime to be found and very little of it dubbed. So all I'd ever seen was Speed Racer.
Yeah.
And Saturday mornings at 6:30, and what they were then calling Battle of the Planets, which was Gotcha Man. But they dubbed it and cut out all the bits where people die and the scary adult stuff.
Yeah, I remember
Battle of the Planets.
Yeah,
and I was so in love with Jason. Listen, moving on. So that's all I had ever seen. So I had no idea the width and breadth of anime until way later. Actually, when I was working in that Blockbuster, they had a little section which they were then calling Japanimation. And there were a lot of titles on that, but a lot of them didn't catch my eye. I grabbed 3 off that shelf. I saw Golgo 13, The Professional, the movie. I saw Vampire Hunter D, and I saw Grave of the Fireflies. And those 3 titles will show you. They showed me how broad anime gets. And the interesting end of that story is many years later, I ended up voicing Golgo 13, and then I ended up voicing Count Magnus in a redub of Vampire Hunter D. And I was like a Farmer Joe or something in Grave of the Fireflies. So those few titles I'd ever seen circled back into my life. And I mean, that was just, wrecked me too, Amy. Wrecked. Grave of the Fireflies, not recommended if you cry easily. Bring a couple of these. Yeah. Ooh, I got a bad shoulder. I shouldn't have done that.
Right.
But yeah. So anyway, to answer your question again, brevity. I played Bulat in a Kame ga Kill, and I
Yeah.
had no idea what I was headed into. And there was Bulat, and like when you first meet him, they're like, and oh, by the way, he's also gay. And
Was that the director's note? Like, oh, by
no,
the
that was the line in the show.
oh, really?
Yeah, when you first meet, well, not when
Oh,
you first meet Bulat,
yes,
but when
yes,
they first introduce
yeah,
him to talk to me, they're like,
yeah,
oh, and he's gay.
yes.
And he pops out of the fountain shirtless and gorgeous and like, hey, we don't want to give him the wrong idea or whatever. And I was completely flabbergasted.
Really?
And even more flabbergasted because as that show went on, it turned out that Bulat's homosexuality was not his contribution to the narrative.
Right.
Like it was like he was a brunette, right-handed, a
Yeah.
teacher, a mentor. Oh, and also gay.
And gay.
You know?
Yeah.
And that's something Japan's been doing really well in anime for a number of years. Whereas in America, generally, and this was the case back in the 50s, and it's still the case now. If you have a gay character in any American narrative, and I would be hard pressed to find anything that doesn't fit in this archetype.
Right.
You're one of three archetypes. You are either the gay martyr, like you're a character who like they introduce this character and they're gay and they have disaster relationships, or they're trying to adopt a kid and they won't let them adopt a kid, or their partner gets their husband, the guy's husband is a cop and he gets injured in the line of fire and they won't let him into the hospital, and then their arc ends. Right. So the only job of that character is to show you the suffering, the plight of the gay person.
Yeah.
So that's the gay martyr. The other one is the gay clown, which is generally the one who's just mincing all over the screen for laughs and constantly reminding you like the gay perspective on things. And like really, you can go to any one of those titles, any one of them, that feature characters like this, and it's 90% of them. And you can take out their laugh lines. Like you can watch a TV show that features gay characters, take out whatever line they just said that got a laugh from the audience. And if you replace that line with, by the way, I just want to let everybody know that I am super gay.
Yeah.
It does not change the narrative. Like so there's the gay clown.
Right.
Sometimes the gay clown is also like the soft upstairs neighbor who pets a cat and dispenses sagely wisdom. It's like, it's so lazy. And then the third one that makes me crazy is the gay psychopath. You've got Javier Bardem in that Bond movie. And like, he was already sick. He was already crazy. He was already messed up in the head. And you could just feel the writers in the room going, how do we make him even more sick and twisted? Ooh, he's also gay, right? The show Gotham gave us a couple of those. I stopped watching. I couldn't take it anymore. They made Penguin gay. They made Barbara and her name was Tabitha. I called her not Catwoman. They made them gay. Like the Penguin figured out he was gay in the middle of a psychotic break and used his gay identity to then spend a whole season murdering people.
Really?
Like, yeah. And like this is the 21st century, and that's still what we get over here. There are very, very few exceptions, and honestly, I can't really think of any, even in the shows that we think are great. Now, that being said, it's important that our stories be told. And really, when you're talking about television and film, they only have so long to tell a story.
Yeah.
So pretty much any sort of like, if you've got a guy who's a construction worker in a TV show, that's going to give you a set of parameters for that character. And the show probably won't break. Like that person probably doesn't go home and read Tolstoy. You know what I'm saying? But like, it's all we get.
Yeah.
It's all we get. And it's got to end. And when I started, after I played Bulat and I saw how well this anime, Akame ga Kill, handled this subject matter, I went on a dive and I found all of these titles, these titles that featured queer characters whose main contribution was not their queerness, in all kinds of shows. They're everywhere. Yeah. But then also shows that specifically relate to the queer coming of age experience, and that's something we're not doing very well over here.
Yeah.
Pardon, I got choked up. So I went on a deep dive and I watched a lot of stuff.
Good.
You know, in a very short period of time. I was spending like all night out on my porch, just glued to my tablet and watching, you know, all this anime and going, okay. And, you know, clearly you watch enough of it. You know, you watch enough anime that centers around queer stories and you will find the tropes, you know, plenty of tropes in Japanese anime as well.
Yeah.
But I feel like those are often storytelling devices, you know, and really, you know, I think the biggest hangups we have in America with those stories, they happen when there's like a moment of non-consensual intimacy, which is everywhere in anime.
Yeah.
Frankly, that's a cultural thing. You know, in Japan, the sort of dominating male is a very celebrated archetype. Like the male who takes charge and takes control and doesn't take any crap and probably chain smokes and has a really low, you know, this voice and like, you know, and like over in Japan, that's a celebrated romantic archetype. But over here, it's just a pig.
Well,
you know what I mean?
In Latino culture, it's the same. The idea of machismo is very much part of Latino culture. And I remember managing a Walmart in Baldwin Park. That was really when I really appreciated coming from North Carolina, right? Where I played football, and one of the first things that ever got told to me is there's two types of people that play football: rednecks and black people. And they didn't say black people. Mm-hmm. And then I went to California, and it's like, oh, but guess what? Some people are Asian and some people are Latino, and then so my women on my overnight crew would educate me. I would ask questions, and they would like help me understand the culture, and they'd be like, don't worry about blah, blah, blah. He's machismo. I'm like, you have to tell me what that means. And so like, it was very helpful to be aware of what's going on behind, like underneath the, there are certain biases, there's certain cultural education that people are getting from their parents. Mm-hmm. And you have to know that when you talk to somebody who is XYZ age, they're bringing that to your conversation.
Yeah.
And I had a conversation with someone the other day that she was saying like, I feel that you are talking to me because I'm Mexican. And I said, well, that's interesting. Can you like identify anything in my life that would say like, oh, that guy's a racist? And she was like, okay, so maybe not. I was like, well, what gave you, like, where did it come from? Like, tell me about this. Where did this impression come from? And she said, well, and then she talked about like what comes from parents that teach their Latino youth, like, hey, white people will do this. White people will don't let them do this. Don't let them do that. And so it's like, that's what we've been spreading. That's how prejudice in 2020 is stronger than it was. You talked about like, how did we go from the 80s to 40 years later? And and not only is it not better, but in many ways it's worse in that we have culturally sown some of these ridiculous, inaccurate stereotypes into our very, like our culture. And that's, I think, what has kept progress down so much is that we haven't really been careful of, to the question, we haven't been careful of the way that we talk to each other, about each other. And that's, it's compounding. So what is the experience like when you read that Japanese? Like, are there resources that you turn to? How do you decide like what way you're going to go with a particular word or a phrase, or like, is there resources that you use? How does that process look?
No, I have. I mean, for me, the job of the ADR scriptwriter is twofold, and I think it's unfortunate, but I think by and large, especially, you know, because frankly, a lot of the scriptwriters, I have a benefit because I could sort of, not that I could necessarily pick my projects. I mean, in some cases I did.
Yeah.
But like, I'm not a full-time writer. I'm not trying to make my living as a scriptwriter. So I don't have to worry about like, I've got to finish 2 episodes today. You know, like I can take my time. And Love Stage, I mean, I think all told, I took maybe 6 to 8 months
Oh,
working on
wow.
that script. And toward the end, we were getting close to the window where it would be a good time to go into production. I mean, they were basically, Sentai was essentially waiting on me to just finish it and be able to pull
Really?
the trigger. Yeah. Very unusual for the practice of any dubbing studio to be
Yeah.
in that situation. But Love Stage was a very special case. So I was taking my time with that script, and it even got to a point where toward the end, I was about halfway through, like finished. I was writing it like a novel. Like you write a draft, and then I'd go out on the porch and pace and think about a line, and like
Man,
I was just like,
man.
I was agonizing over it.
Yeah.
And that window was fast approaching. So I hired whom I felt was one of the very few other people on earth that I could trust to help me with that script. And that was Marissa Lenti, who is an extraordinarily gifted script writer. And also, does it with great regularity. So she's actually very fast too, but any script writer, you give them time, you tell them, yeah, you can take some time. You don't have to turn in an episode a day.
Yeah.
They will stretch into that. And of course, I mean, Marissa just does phenomenal work. And there's virtually no one else on the planet I would have trusted to help me with Love Stage, because that was my baby.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, Marissa did a great Love Cage coming soon. Look out, everyone. So Marissa did a magnificent job with that. And of course, as the director of these shows, scripts are always liquid. We write these scripts and we go in and they will change because you get an actor in reading a line, and that line maybe just doesn't quite resonate, or maybe they don't have the same sense of timing that the writer did when they wrote it. So things change, and an inflection one actor uses might make a reaction from another actor a little, you can tweak it a little bit to make it a little bit, more natural. You know what I mean? So scripts will change up until the moment they're done being recorded.
Really? So even when you went in to record, you would be like, I thought I liked it the way that I wrote it, but it turns out fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't just do that with the scripts I wrote. If I'm directing, that script basically belongs to me now.
Really?
And so I change things liberally. I'm a little notorious for it.
Oh, man.
Marissa and I have collaborated on several shows. She wrote Bloom Into You. She wrote Kase-sana Morning Glory.
Really?
Yeah. Those things changed once I got them into the booth and I had them in my hands. And sometimes it's contextual. Sometimes it's because I feel like I might have a slightly better angle on communicating the queer experience, having grown up as a queer person. There are things I understand that it's difficult to relay to someone who hasn't actually had that experience. Right. And my point with those shows was to make them an authentic rendering. So I changed a lot of the mechanics. Hitarizume, My Hero, is another example. That script was finished when I got a hold of it.
Really?
And written by Marta Bechtold, who did a lovely job and does a lot of writing for Sentai Filmworks. But again, looking at it, it's impossible for Marta to understand the queer experience that as I do, or the male experience as I do. And so, when I got that into my hands, I was able to sort of zhuzh, sort of massage that script into something more naturalistic. But that was, like a half an hour to answer your question. The answer to your question is, as I began to say, I have two concerns as a script writer, solely as a script writer. The first is to communicate the narrative and the essence of the characters as they are communicated in Japanese. Okay. And as I began to say, unfortunately, a lot of writers, mostly because of time constraints, stop there. For me, equally as important is to know what is the emotional response that show in Japanese intended to elicit. Now that requires a lot of guesswork on my part, but I've been a storyteller in some sense or another for over 40 years. So I have some sense about what someone's trying to get at when they put something before an audience. I have a sense of that from long years of experience. So there's a lot of guesswork involved, but you have to consider,
Oh,
there's this line as it exists in Japanese, but it's meant to get a laugh. And if I
right.
use those words, it's just not going to be
Okay.
funny. Or it's meant to have you really connect with the character. And because of the way that characters presenting themselves in America, in English speaking culture, that might not really work. It might not make you feel connected to the character if they speak that way. You know
Right.
what I mean? So I make a lot of changes based on that. And I'm very liberal about it. And when I started script writing, I was really worried because, I'd worked for studios that were always like, directors would be going through and they'd look at a line that a writer wrote and think, oh, that's a little far away from the translation. So, it varies from director to director, but a lot of directors are married to
Oh,
the
really?
direct translation and want to keep it as close as possible and still fit it in the mouths. I think that's half the job.
Yeah.
Um, but I can only apply that rule to what I'm directing, and as an actor, I got to play along with whatever that director wants out of me in that
Have
situation.
you ever reached out to any Japanese creators of stuff that you're working on to say like, this is what I was thinking? Like, did I get this in terms of like, no?
No, never.
Okay.
The last thing you want to do is contact a writer of a thing and go, like an originator of a thing, and go,
Yeah.
I don't think that quite works in this country. What do you think if I do that? No.
Okay.
No. Because, by and large, especially when you're talking about, translating something from Japanese to English, a
Yeah.
Japanese speaker, it's just like for us, you and I, Brad, we could spend 20 years learning Japanese. We could take
Sure.
every class, we could read every book, we could watch every movie,
Yeah.
get every taste of Japanese culture that we can,
And
but
still not
we
be Japanese.
will never
Yeah.
understand Japanese culture
Right.
like a native Japanese person.
Yeah.
Consequently, I
That's
mean,
a good
it's the
point.
same thing is true of a Japanese person to an English speaking person.
Right.
Like there are elements. It's not just a language; it's a culture. It's a different ethos. It's a different mythos.
Yeah.
It's a different religions, different legends. All of these things go to inform and feed what a writer is writing and the inferences that they layer into
Yeah.
that work. And so I have to take that all in consideration. I have to do, with Ike's script for Love Stage, I had to do my very best to figure out exactly what she was going for, and then figure out a way to elicit a response like that from an English speaking audience. And on top of that, for Love Stage, for Hitorijime, My Hero, and even as we were working on Bloom Into You and Kase-sana Morning Glories, I have to. I also intend it's my mission to make it authentic, to make those scripts relating those queer stories as authentically as possible. I can do that because that's my experience.
Right. Yes. You can speak.
So things change. And there was actually there's a great example in Hitorijime, My Hero. It's my favorite example of this thing that I'm talking about. Pardon. In the original Japanese, there's a scene. This is after, spoiler alert, this is after Kenny and Asuya have gotten together. I call him Kenny. It is my right. Kenny and Asuya have gotten together and they're upstairs doing their thing. Nothing naughty. They're just having they're just having their little relationship upstairs. And there's all this noise because they're Kensuke gets upset and he's like, ah, and the boys are downstairs playing video games or whatever, and they hear all this rumble upstairs. Now, in the Japanese, one of the characters is like, "What's going on?" And they're like, "Oh, they're." I don't remember what they said, but it became a joke about the creature that takes a pearl out of your anus, a kappa, steals the pearl from your anus. They made a joke about that, and I was like, even if I've read The Legend of the Kappa that steals the pearl from your anus or whatever, first of all, I'm going to have to think about that. And by the time I'm done thinking about that, the moment has passed. And also not funny to us, not to me.
Right.
And it's going to require a translation note.
Right.
So if you have a joke, a laugh line that requires a translation note, you must find another joke. right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like, what I did was I turned that into an exchange about, rumble, rumble, rumble. What is going on up there? I don't know. They're probably touching each other's butts or whatever. And then one of the kids like, do you think they're looking at our butts? Which is a very American exchange, right?
Yeah.
And that communicates the joke. Like these kids, these boys who are Kenny and Asia's friends, they get it. They're perfectly cool about them being together, but they don't really understand it. They're young straight boys and they don't know, they don't get it.
Yeah.
So that's what the joke is. The joke's not the kappa. It's the attempt and the failure to completely understand the experience of these straight boys downstairs. Right? So that's why things have to change. If it's a laugh line, its job is to get a laugh. And as long as you're not changing the story,
right. It's like a change of pace thing rather than it is.
Yeah. And likewise with, there's a rather notorious line in Hitarizume, My Hero. It's oft mentioned. And it's when, I don't know. I probably shouldn't say the line on this. This is a family show, right? So
it's late. And sometimes,
pardon me, got a frog in my throat. No, that's just my voice. So there's the scene where Masahiro and Kosuke are just sort of starting to touch on this energy that exists between them. And Kosuke says something very alarming to Masahiro, something like, see, that's the look I mean, that's the look you give when you are begging me to you.
Yeah.
And Masahiro's like, Hapa, right? It's like a completely shocking moment.
Yeah.
And I got 2 F words in that show, and that was going to be one of them. I knew, because that had to shock.
Yeah.
And any other iteration of that line wasn't going to be enough to make a, 16-year-old kid like Masahiro, like they hear worse than that every day, right?
Yeah.
But if you're a grown man, say that to you. You're begging me to you.
Yeah.
Like that's, yes, shock therapy. Yeah. That's a line that kicks you right in the balls, right?
Yeah.
And that's what it had to do. So, in the Japanese, they used a slightly kinder word, but I was assured by one of the translators in the house that it was supposed to be a somewhat vulgar expression of the term. So I was like, well, that's an F-bomb now.
Yeah.
And I think it works really well. And the people, like, you can hear the collective, really? I heard it on Facebook and Twitter. People when the first came out, they're like, I can't believe you wrote that line. Yes.
Yes, it worked. So tell me about the train in Bloom Into You. Whose decision? Because I have to say, it's one of the things that's going to stick with me forever. And I think whenever I hear the train now, because we actually live near a train, an operating train. There are a lot of tracks in America that have been abandoned, but we live in a town in which the train very much goes through. And instantly, I'm transported to the world of Bloom Into You, and I'm thinking about Rachel, whom I love. They think about but there's these really powerful moments where all the audio drops out and you just hear the train. Like, is that the sound engineer? Is that you? Is that like who puts?
That's as it was in the Japanese.
Okay.
Generally, when it comes to sound effects and things like that, when we're dubbing a script, we get elements, we are given elements by the Japanese license holders of the show. So what we get, and they're generally all separated. So you have the Japanese dialogue on its own set of tracks. You have what's called M&Es, music and environment, and that is on its own track. And so
it all comes like separately. And if you're looking at, it's just a line here, right?
Right. So, our job is to replace the Japanese dialogue, of course.
Right.
The M&Es, generally, we don't change them, and we don't feel much need to change them. So that is as it appeared in the Japanese. And the train sequences are fantastic, aren't they? Just gorgeous.
When you heard that, then you had a similarly strong, like, to me, it's almost more striking than the imagery.
Well, you know what? It's audio too, Brad, because silence
Yes.
Silence is very important. And I think often we forget that. As musicians, we forget that. As writers, we forget. As actors, we forget that. Silence is your best tool as a storyteller. It's like Ernest Hemingway used to talk about the tip of the iceberg in storytelling, like the story he would tell. And when you read Hemingway, it's very curt, short sentences, very non-descriptive, very like sort of straightforward stuff. And what Hemingway would say that he was doing was giving you the tip of the iceberg, and all the story is the giant mass of ice under the water, right? Well, the use of silence, and I have never heard, thank you, Alicia, I have never heard a better use of silence than Miles Davis, right? Now, I was a jazz major, so I've listened to a lot of Miles. But Miles Davis, if you don't know who Miles Davis is, listen, just go buy the album Kinda Blue, and you're welcome. But Miles Davis, one of the most gifted trumpet players ever in the medium. And when you listen to Miles play, he's not doing those big, like Dizzy Gillespie runs. He plays very simply, and he will leave incredible amounts of space in his solo sections. And that space is for you, right? It's for your imagination. It's for you to carry that line on, carry that narrative on. And shows like Bloom Into You use so much silence. Kaze-san and Morning Glories is mostly silence. And what you get to do in those silent moments is you get to go to this abstract place where you're immediately put in this reflective frame of mind and this sort of abstract and interpretive frame of mind, and you're forced to fill in those gaps with your own imagination. Silence is an incredible, incredible tool. One of the best tools you can use for any kind of storyteller.
Well, not only in storytelling. So I have my first bachelor's degree is in education and secondary education. I was going to be, before I found out how much they make, I was going to be a high school biology teacher. Well, Mr. Walsh, or coach, really, he coached the girls soccer team. He was the athletic director, and he was the biology teacher. And I loved this idea because usually most coaches coach PE as a teacher, right? They're like, my responsibility is in the coaching world, so I can't possibly do something very academic because my responsibility is over here. And so I loved this. He's a girls soccer coach as a dude. He's the athletic director, so he's in charge of all sports, but also he taught AP biology. And so I was inspired by this guy that to me didn't fit a mold of what any of those things look like, what your biology teacher, what your coach looked like. And so I ended up going back after I graduated high school. And while I was playing football in college my senior year, I went and started he was the athletic director at a brand new high school. And so I called him up and I was like, hey, I just saw an article in the newspaper. I'm home from college. I don't start two-a-days until whatever. Like, do you guys want me to come down? And I started working with the new football team. And anyway, he inspired me to go into education. And there's an incredible amount of literature about how to teach people things. And one of the most powerful things that I ever got out of that education was to stop and let somebody answer. That if you take a question, especially a good question, and you throw it out into a room, you have to give time for, you're always going to get the person who's willing to respond like this. But if you'll wait and if you'll be comfortable with the silence, what you will get is the thoughtful, intent person who really has something amazing to say that most people just aren't giving them. They're going to wait 10 seconds and then that's it. And then that person will arrive at where they're at in 20 seconds. But you've already, people like me that are like, you're right. And so if you'll just pause. And so in Sunday school, I learned to, when I go to church, I'll throw it out there and then I just, right? And then you just wait to see what shrapnel hits. And it's amazing. The people that are willing to step forward and be something is phenomenal if you'll just shut up and give them space. So
And the
silence.
story is the same. The story will deliver itself unto you
You just
in
wait.
those quiet moments.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I love that it came with it, and I love that it impacted you in the same way that it did me. Tell me, in Love Stage, I was like, I went to it with so much expectations after Blooming Teeth. I thought every gay anime was just the most serious thing ever, and
Ah,
we all had to cross our legs and sit and kind of observe the art of being gay, and that being gay is way more sophisticated than being straight. And then I watched Love Stage, and it all I had to read. I was like, "Who's gay? I don't know. Is everyone gay?
everyone. Everyone's gay. Everyone's gay.
I mean, he has parents, so they're not gay. Like, I don't.
They're
Is
a little gay.
it gay either? I was like, oh my god.
Actually, one of the things that Love Stage, the show, doesn't communicate to you very well. There are some little hints in it, but Ray, the character I voiced, when he first became hooked up with the family of the Sennas, it was because he had a huge crush on Seiya, the father.
Okay, so the manager. You're saying the
Yeah.
manager?
Mhm. The manager, Ray, the manager with the green hair and the attitude.
It took me, David. It took me until he asked him, "Does it hurt to have gay sex?" And I was like, I guess I'm finally gonna find out if David's character is gay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so then but again, so sophisticated, so put together, so it's like, man, you just really have to have it all together to be gay.
Mm.
Like, not allowed. Are you allowed to be gay and like not have it together?
Oh God, I hope so. I really hope so. Otherwise, I'm in a lot of trouble, Brad.
Is that an archetype though? Is that what am I seeing when in your character in Love Stage? Is that an archetype? Is that typical? Is that the narrative that people are pitching about being gay? Like,
Well, the show holds that reveal. Sorry, spoiler, everybody. Ray is so gay. But I think actually, according to canon, Ray is bisexual. We see
okay,
no evidence of that in the anime, but during the course of his relationship with Shogo, spoiler, pretty gay. So, especially if you read Backstage, which is the story of Ray and Shogo. It's
oh really?
manga, yeah, or a light novel, I think, technically.
Okay.
But yeah, no, I think what Ray is he's part of a Japanese archetype that doesn't involve sexual orientation.
Yeah.
It's, the sort of the Japanese archetype of the guy who's got it all together, who has all the ducks in a row, has all the things scheduled, has all the invitations out. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
Ray's the guy who kind of runs the family business, really.
Yeah.
So I think that's more what his archetype is. And really, that's what the show, that's what the anime is trying to communicate to you about Ray, that he's that guy. And he earns that position because, as Izumi describes him, they're pathologically capable manager, Ray.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's really part of the gay archetype so much. But yeah, and it's sort of it's supposed to take you aback a little bit when Ray is like, oh yeah, I know exactly what it's like to be held by another man.
I guess I couldn't go into it bias free because you and I are friends and we talk regularly. That like I have been waiting. I guess I'm like, is he going to be gay in this? Is he going to be gay in this? Is he going to be gay? Like, I was like, oh, exactly. Finally, he's gay in something. Awesome. That's great. So tell me about what is the kid's name? To this
Izumi.
Okay.
Little Izumi.
Is that typical of that experience at that age? I guess I was pretty convinced, which I'm guessing is part of the story. I'm guessing that there's such a heterosexual culture that when you grow up, that like people who are gay have to find out they're gay from themselves because there's just such a firm understanding that you grow up, you get married, you reproduce, that like nobody ever stops to go like, I guess maybe if you're gay, that you like, you know what I mean? Like it. So tell me about that. How typical is that? How typical is it for you? How typical is it for like? Do you have friends that are kids that are going through that stage of blooming into who they are?
Mhm.
What is that like in terms of? Um,
Well, I wouldn't say that Izumi is a typical
okay.
gay kid. I would say he's an archetypical, gay kid.
Okay.
And there are many different facets of the experience, and certainly there are plenty of kids out there going through that don't have, that don't even have someone on the other side, like like a don't have a Rioma, don't have someone that they're actually
Oh,
going after or who's coming after them. They just
right.
like sort of know they feel different. They don't. A lot of kids don't have a supportive family the way Izumi's family was supportive. Don't and I include Ray and Shogo, who Shogo of course is Izumi's brother, but really Ray and Shogo, Ray is kind of Izumi's mom, and Shogo is kind of Izumi's dad. And again, the anime doesn't
Oh, yeah.
communicate much of
You're
that.
talking about his older brother?
Shogo is his older brother,
Yes, who
but
I love. I love.
yeah,
He's great.
my Greggy Cody is so brilliant. Um, uh, Izumi's experience is it's certainly not uncommon. But yes, I know from my end, when I was a kid, I always knew what I wanted or whom I
Right?
wanted. I always knew. I
Really?
always knew forever.
Okay.
But because I was so programmed to buy the heterosexual ticket,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just assumed that at some point or another
You were just
I
like,
was going to fall for a girl, and it was
really?
just the way the universe tended, and that was what was going to happen. And like I mean, I never really thought of it in literal terms. I never thought of it in terms
Really?
of like that distinct.
Okay.
But I guess, you know, I was really afraid to call myself a gay person in my teen years because I felt like I don't know yet, I mean, maybe I'll meet my wife in college. Maybe I'll
Oh,
get married and have kids.
yeah.
I figured everybody's experience was like my experience. And when we're young, we're just kind of interested in what our bodies can do alone and together. You know
Yeah.
what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
And then eventually I was going to get past this thing, and then I was going to, meet a girl, and she was going
Right.
to be the one. And, you know, uh, I think probably by the time I was maybe about 16, I was well aware that that was not going to happen. But I,
Okay.
I still was, I still was trying for it. I dated a couple of girls in high school in my experimental years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dated a girl in college. Extraordinary women. Here's
Yeah.
the thing: the real tragedy is over the course of my life, or especially my young years, I haven't dated a woman in a really long time. But in my young years, I had access to and connection with some unbelievably extraordinary women.
Yeah.
And had I been a heterosexual boy, I would have been the luckiest one on
Yeah.
earth.
Yeah.
But I wasn't. Wasn't gonna work,
Yeah.
and it took me probably until I was about 20 to just say, yes, okay, I am a homosexual man.
Fine. I'll
Let's
go find a
just
guy.
Yeah, let's
'Cause
just
I was surprised that what was just crazy to me in Love Stage is that, and why I kept asking myself, like, who is gay? Is like, nobody goes into that entire story that I could tell gay. Like, nobody is gay at the start of the anime, and at the end of the anime, everyone is gay. Like, is this typical? Does like at some point in like high school or college, do all the gay people like find each other, or they because with the relationship, they're both. He's like, what the fetch, dude? You told me you're a chick. Get the out of here. And
Yeah,
oh man, I guess that guy's really a dick face. And then
yeah,
he's like, no, I'm super gay. Like,
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of the metaphor in Love Stage is that it's you don't You don't know. And gay people live in all facets of society, all places on earth. We're everywhere. We can't be avoided, right? And I think a show like Love Stage, and to be fair, it's a common element of storytelling in Shonen Ai, where it turns out everyone is gay. Like everyone, it's common. It's a very common occurrence in anime. But I think as a metaphor, it works really well to sort of illustrate the point that we walk in all shoes. There you go, Vixen.
Okay. So that's a beautiful. Okay, so I just caught what you're saying right there in terms of the. Okay, so I'm gonna, man, I don't want to like straight explain this, but that's a brilliant thought in terms of the storytelling is it's not to actually say that everyone is gay. It's for us all to realize that gay people don't look like this.
Right. We don't all wear dresses, and we don't all, And it's all metaphor, Brad. I mean, all these things are metaphor. Even some of the stuff that we have the deepest problems with in our particular Western society misbehaves and like shows up at Izumi's house and treats him very badly.
Oh yeah.
And in our lives in America, if I were a parent and somebody did that to my kid, they'd be dead.
Yeah.
Dead.
Yeah.
Right. But like, here's the thing. It's a metaphor. It's a metaphor for the self-aware gay person trying to force the not self-aware gay person out of that closet, out of that darkness, and into the light of recognition. Now, it's used a lot.
Yeah.
And I think we need new metaphors. But the same is true of intergenerational relationships, such as in Hitorijime My Hero, or Super Lovers, or Junjo Romantica, or so many examples of an older person and a younger person falling for one another. But what that is, again, is the sort of the experienced gay soul trying to help the inexperienced gay soul recognize its own nature.
Is there
a metaphor?
There way? Like,
sorry,
is there another way? Meaning, in real life, if we go back to being gay, like being actually gay, like it seems like there's such a heterosexual culture. Is there a way to arrive at this is what I am without somebody that, I don't know, gently?
Oh, sure. Yeah, sure. I mean, it happens in these narratives because these narratives are about a coupling, right? They're about a relationship. So those elements are going to play themselves out within the context of that relationship, right? But in our culture, in the West, we have mentors. We have, we have the Trevor Project. We have organizations dedicated to illuminating this experience and making the young gay person aware of the fact that they're okay.
Right. I see what you mean.
Yeah. But when you're telling a story that has to wrap up in 10
you have to accomplish it in a certain amount of time. Okay. Being gay and being religious, to me, I appreciated and was very sad to see the exit of Pete Buttigieg from the presidential landscape.
Yeah.
So I'm as a person who wants to take all of this privilege that I have and start and give it out, I guess, or whatever it looks like. I was so happy to see somebody hella intelligent. I mean, the dude's education was spectacular, upbringing spectacular, military spectacular. Man, did that mother check some boxes?
Yeah.
Mayor in his 20s, of South Bend, where Notre Dame University is. It's a college town. You know what I mean? The dude was, and even in his exit, he was graceful. He did it strategically. He did not leave the race for lack of people being behind him. He did a careful math calculation of the Electoral College and saw that this is the ultimate goal. And if I have to fall on the sword of my personal goal to help the ultimate goal, that what an incredible human being is. What was it like in your community to watch somebody so capable, so intelligent, so good looking, so everything, even married, openly gay and married with cats. Like, what was that experience like? Did that help or hurt? Had you ever thought of somebody that religious and that gay at the same time? Like, what was that experience like for you?
I was a huge Pete fan. And as you say, the fact that he was a fellow member of the tribe was way down on the list of the things that I think qualified him for that job and made him so extraordinary. The good news is Pete is so young and he's going to be back. And when he's back, I will vote for him again.
Yeah.
Because he's brilliant, and the thing that I loved about Buttigieg was that when he was asked a question, he answered it.
Oh yeah.
He didn't pivot. He didn't obfuscate. He answered the question with, just like he had such skills, and he's a young guy. Yeah. So I look forward to a future where Pete Buttigieg is a major factor. As far as right now, it was extraordinary. No, I never imagined that this soon we would see a gay candidate who got as much credibility, who got as much support as Pete got. It's unfortunate that his campaign ended. I mean, he was my guy. I'll tell you truthfully, he was my guy.
I now no longer know what I'm going to do. In terms of, I'm going to wait. I mean, November, it's really not that far.
Yeah.
I hope something changes. I hope something changes.
Yeah. I would like everything to change.
Yeah, because what we have now is just the more old white dudes club, the rich old white dudes club. I'm so effing over.
That's always the way, isn't it? There's a great quote I read in an old sci-fi book. The trouble with power is that it always ends up in the hands of the kind of people who crave it. And that's really an unsolvable problem, isn't it? I mean, the only solution to that problem is to make political offices a lottery, that's a gamble, man.
Man, but let me put the other side of that coin, David, is Spider-Man. Because Uncle Ben looked Peter Parker in the eye and said, hey, if you have the power, then you have the responsibility. Yeah. And that was where I came to. I actually helped Ross Perot run for president back when I was a teenager. He actually, we made a hell of an impact in the state of North Carolina, noticeable enough in the voting numbers that he called to say thank you. And it was that time where I thought, well, I guess it's about as realistic as anyone's aspiration to get to that office. And I think if I don't run, then somebody who wants it for power is going to get it. And that there has to be somebody that's willing to do it because it's the right thing to do. And Pete Buttigieg was the first person. I thought I was it. Because so many people you hear, I would never. I'm like, well, if none of you are going to do it, somebody around here who loves people and not power has to do it.
Yeah.
And it was the first time for me that I got to see what it could look like to tell the truth, to actually answer the questions. And then for me, he solved a big piece of the puzzle in terms of being religious and being gay. And that, I think, for me as a religious person, was he would whip those scriptures out, and as a religious person, that makes me happy. Mm-hmm. That you know what you believe about the world so well that it's not weird, it's not awkward. There was never a time where I felt Pete Buttigieg preached to people.
Yeah.
But he was a religious person. And when he gave his answers, his religion informed his answers. And I thought that was incredible.
Yeah.
What was in terms of, a lot of churches have, I guess they've decided to, they're going to take one stand or the other. And we are now starting to see marquees that say, if you're gay, come in. Mm-hmm. Where I didn't see that before Buttigieg. I'm seeing flags on marketing material for the Methodist Church has always kind of been at the forefront of being inclusive, I've always felt like. But I feel like we're starting to see Part of me is nervous that it's a business thing. Churches are seeing declining revenue from tithing because people are finding there's so many stories that the Bible is now only one story out of, like, it used to be the greatest story ever told. And Charlton Heston made right, Ben-Hur and all, right? Lots of great things that reinforce this idea that the Bible is the greatest story ever told. But now that we're in the age of storytelling, and people can find stories elsewhere to rest their faith on, that is it a marketing thing? Is it genuine? Like, where in the gay community has there been a bigger conversation since Pete Buttigieg about where religion fits into?
That conversation's actually been going on for quite a while.
Okay.
I have a lot of acquaintances who are gay men who are very active members of a variety of churches. I have a lot of friends who are members of churches that are actively and enthusiastically supportive of their gay parishioners. I got to tell you, from my own end, I was raised Catholic in the 80s under the worst of circumstances, right? And I kept hearing the words, the sin of homosexuality. Right. I heard it like every weekend. So church failed me. And I am consequently not a religious person. Right. I'm a spiritual person. But I have, because of my early experiences with religion,
right,
and particularly the Catholic religion, and particularly like going to Sunday school and asking questions that they yelled at me for asking, right? That's my experience. And so I had to figure out how to understand my spirituality without using an organized religion to do so. And I've found a way to navigate that. I've come to my own conclusions about where the heart of my spirituality is, and what my spirituality is telling me, the kind of person it's telling me to be. Because after all, what is a Bible? What is a holy text? It's lessons in how to live.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Right. So
a careful reading of the scriptures reveals it's a bunch of dudes' journals.
Yeah.
That were voted on.
Dear diary.
That were voted on by councils.
Yeah.
And the leaders at the time in Trent and Nicaea literally decided who's in, who's out, just like Survivor, just like America, right? And so, yes. What is it but a bunch of dudes' journals?
Yeah.
And more dudes.
But I've known a lot of guys. I've known a lot of men and women who belong to churches, who are, gay, married to their partners, whatever. And they're active members of churches who seem very supportive of them and very very welcoming and very warm. And I think that's fantastic. I learned how to navigate spirituality without a group. And I don't want to turn back from that now. Yeah. I don't, it's like I say, I avoid large groups of like-minded individuals for a lot of reasons. Because that's, you get into mob mentality eventually.
Yeah.
And that can be, it's one of the most dangerous things about human existence is the mob mentality.
Well, we live in what is now referred to as the post-truth era. And the fact that I can say that out loud, and that there's even a term for it, is pretty disturbing. In our religious community, I look like this. Man, are there very few Mormons who look like this. Mm-hmm. I'm married to a Mohawk chick. Man, are there very few, and we intentionally look like this to remind the people, our own congregation that we go with, that there are people that don't look like you that would like to belong here. And it's up to all of us, you guys that all look the same, especially, to make sure that they feel welcome in this community. And that if they have a crisis of faith, that we don't make it the time where we point out how they're different. That their crisis of faith is not where you go, well, you do this thing differently. You're this thing differently. It's no, buddy. You're going to hit the wall too. And what are you going to say to yourself when you look like everybody else that goes to church?
Well, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Where the teachings of Christ are all about how to bring people into the fold,
And
how
the
to
what?
welcome people
Yeah,
into your universe and
yeah,
share space with them. But then mankind gets a hold of this thinking, and we start making
yeah,
religions and like,
yeah,
I've got, the I'm red number 5 religion, and I hate the red number 6 people because they think, book
yeah,
4, chapter 12, verse 28 says this, and I think it really says this. So we need a new religion that supports
yeah,
my thinking.
yeah.
And like what we do with religion, it seems to be not because of the nature of religion itself, but because of the nature of
Of
man,
humanity.
is
Yeah,
find ways to exclude people from it,
yeah,
to delineate ourselves from
yeah,
the other,
yeah. And
and that's why, a lot of the people I describe, the gay friends I have who belong to churches and are enthusiastic members of them, belong to Unitarian churches, which
Mhm.
generally have a reputation for
Yeah,
not,
yeah,
strictly adhering to one particular
yeah.
doctrine.
I got you. All right. Well, I'm going to be, I get to pick the questions. And of course, this question, I'm going to give Rachel the floor on this one. Advice for writers or creators. How do you represent Rainbow Tribe so we've talked a lot about, you have a limited time to tell someone's story, and
Hmm.
you don't want the fact that they're gay. You want it to be as similar to the fact that they have brown eyes and blue hair right. So
Yeah.
what is there?
There's the simplest answer I can give is, and it feels ridiculous for me to be giving this to Rachel, who's already a established novelist. Anyway, here we go. I think the best answer is that what you do is you create a character, and if you want it to be a gay character, great. Uh, Avoid the trap of making that character representative of all gay people. I think that's one of the reasons we have a lot of gay writers in Hollywood who are writing these shows about the gay martyr. The gay martyr is the new, it's kind of the new hotness, right?
Okay.
And every show has one. Almost every show has one. The gay person who's gay and has to suffer for being gay. It's
Right.
terrible. But avoid the trap of having that person of feeling that that character has to represent all the gay people,
All gay people.
because you never will, right?
Okay.
And the best advice I can give is to create that character, enrich that character, fill that character with their elements, take out the fact that they're gay. And if you still have a character, you're doing good.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. And I think it's probably, I think it's probably a tough thing to balance in terms of, so we've seen a lot of the rise of famous Indians in America, Hassan Minhaj, and then he can rattle off, the 5 people that are Indian that are more famous than him. And I think a lot of it is when you're the first of that, you keep falling into that category of representing everyone.
Yeah.
Like we've never had access to Indians before, and now we have a bunch of famous Indians in America. So like it's been really cool to watch him talk about, like, hey man, this is my Indian experience. I find that I relate to the idea of the immigrant father quite a bit. It's tough for me to make the switch between like thinking about fathers as my father and like thinking about me as like I have 5 kids now. At some point, I have to think of myself as a father. We always joke, people are like, they'll go see us at a show and be like, how do you do this? How do you do this with 5 kids? And I'm like, I told them years ago, I don't have time for children. I have time for employees and anytime, right? And so that was fun about Love Stage is seeing that family business. I love the older brother.
Yes, Shogo. Shogo is such an
so
angel.
good. I hope that my kids are as good to each other as he is to Izumi. Like he's just a spectacular. And you called him the mother earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, Ray, Shogo's more of the father, you know, because like in
Really?
Izumi's history, his parents were busy. His mom was like a model and an
Yeah.
actress. His
Yeah.
dad was.
Yeah.
His parents weren't around. The ones who raised Izumi were Ray and Shogo, and
Right.
Shogo was always the permissive, doting father, and Ray was the disciplinarian mother.
Oh,
Right.
I guess because in our relationship it's opposite.
Uh-huh.
Like, Dad's the rule guy. Like, just today, Jet runs in like blood. I was like, did she
Oh.
did a cage fight? Did she MMA? Like, what the fetch? Was she in a hockey accident? How did this happen? And she was like, well, I was horsing around with Novin. I went, and then he palmed her and
Mhm.
chipped a tooth. No, everywhere. And I was like, you punched your 8-year-old sister in the face? Like, say that out loud, Novin. Say that out loud. And then after I cleaned up all the blood, and this is me, this is my day, trying to get the Trevor Project launched, trying to get to see if we can make that so that like the money's going to Trevor. And then I'm like, do you guys understand what today is for me? It's not about. So I called a family meeting and I was like, guys, why is the least favorite thing about your dad the number of rules that I have? Yes. What do I say about rules? And from spitting blood, she goes, rules keep us safe. And it's like blood's like coming. You finally believe me. Does anybody around here believe the guy that talks about rules? And so for me, when I watched Love Stage, it was opposite because I'm Ray. I'm Mr. Rules. Let's keep some order around here, people.
Yeah.
And to me, it's like your mother let you, whatever, okay? Because I know where my toast is buttered, so I'm not about to go in there and tell Rachel like this is how it's gotta be. So I saw that opposite. I guess it depends on how you're raised, right? Or how you're raising.
Well, I think it's a little bit more adherent to the Japanese archetype,
Okay.
you know, which is where the man tends to be a little less hands-on in the raising of the children in Japan.
I guess.
And Shogo is definitely, you know, quite permissive and quite, you know,
But so well-meaning. Like he moves heaven and earth to make sure if something is, you know what I mean? Like for me, that was my mom.
Yeah.
It wasn't, my dad was hands off, but he certainly wasn't permissive. If the only, if he put his hands on, it was hands on for discipline. And so but that's what's great about good storytelling is that you can find yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay, well, David, it's 9:40. I can go forever. If there are things, if there was a time you had in mind, if there are things that you wanted to talk about, I'm good if you're good. But if you
I'm great. Okay, I can talk about this all day.
Okay, let me make sure. I got excited about some of the things we were talking about. I want to make sure. Okay. Did I already do that one? No, I did do that one. I did do that one. But I think it's a great point in that kind of like what you said, if you take away the fact that they're gay, is there still a great story? And I think that's what Jameson's getting at. Let me see if I can scroll down to get your questions, you guys.
Yeah, while you're scrolling, Brad, that's Jameson. That's exactly that's an excellent point, and I think that's one of the strengths of storytelling in the shonenai or the shoujo-ai medium is that it's something interesting happens when you write, and particularly once again, America is very different from Japan. But in American storytelling, when you have a rom-com, a heterosexual rom-com, there are these accepted parameters, right? Like generally most of the time you've got an idiot man who's whatever, a slob, somehow unworthy, trying to win the heart of this put together very intelligent woman, and if they play against that trope, there's a point. You know, it's because they got an Amy Schumer in the role instead of, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They do that on purpose. But it's like, what I'm saying is that there are these accepted parameters in heterosexual romance, all based on this, you know, romance novels of the 80s, the stuff Fabio appeared on the cover of.
Yeah.
Where like you had these archetypes, you know, these, you know, assertive males and these submissive females. And then in film, it became, you know, the really put together woman, you know, dealing with a man with, you know, with a Seth Rogen who's just a mess and is trying to be a better man. You have all these parameters in heterosexual romantic storytelling, but when you get to tell a story about two girls in love, like Bloom Into You or Kase-san, or two boys in love, like in Hitorijime or in Love Stage, those parameters are gone. And what you're watching is this love story develop that doesn't quite fall under those same borders, and you don't quite know as well what to expect. Now, of course, particularly in the shonenai,
I see what you mean.
there are parameters there. You know, generally it kind of boils down to the uke seme trope, where the seme is the guy in control and the uke is sort of the clueless, you know. And so we sort of follow those tropes, and those tropes do play a part, but it's different. And there, you know, you see, if you stick with Love Stage to the end, you'll see the tables turn, you know. You'll see Izumi start to man up, and it's kind of beautiful when those things happen. But you also don't know when they're coming, and I find it even more mysterious in the Yuri and the shoujo eye, you know, like Bloom Into You, where you would expect a character like Toko to be, you know, the assertive one, the one in control, and you'd expect a character like Yamada to be this sort of, you know, we'll go along with it, you know, little cutesy thing, but or not Yamada, you
I was gonna say
Into You, but you actually it gets the upper hand most of the time in that relationship, and Toko is a mess, right? But that's a surprise.
Oh, you're talking. So is Toko the dark hair?
Yeah.
And you is the one. Okay, I have to keep straight, because that was another one where I thought I knew what the pairing was, and then at a certain point I was like, I think I just lost track of who is actually into, because there's a triangle, isn't there?
Yeah.
Okay. And
the best friend.
Yes.
Best friend. So wonderful. Shanae Moore played the role. I saw him. Sakia. I can't remember the character's name now. It's terrible.
I know what you mean. I guess
Sayaka is the best
yes.
friend, and Shanae Moore just, oh god, she was so good in that role. I just loved her.
Well, the cast. Did you cast Bloom Into You?
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
Yep. I cast all my shows, baby.
It is unbelievable. Lucy Christian is spectacular.
Oh, Lucy and Tia together are just magic, aren't they? Just the sound of their voices together. To me, it's like listening to a cello and a violin.
Have you watched any Toilet Bound Haneko?
No.
So it's Justin Briner and Tia Ballard, and you know where they're both pitched. So like, oh my gosh, it is. I don't usually say the word adorable, but I don't know any other way to.
It was just going through my head. I was thinking Justin and Tia. That's got to be the most adorable thing ever.
It is. Yeah. Oh man, I could watch that.
Those two in life are just as adorable. I can tell you, Tia. I mean, Justin is a breath of fresh air. He's a beautiful soul. Tia is like one of the most wonderful and genuinely well-intended human beings I've ever met. She is every bit the sunshine of the sunshiniest character you've ever heard her voice. And like, she's just extraordinary.
If what you were saying is a text right now, I would be screenshotting it and texting Tia like right now that you said. I'm like,
I say it to her all the time.
Okay, good. It's not new. Man, Justin was typecast as Deku. Justin doesn't have to act at all as Deku. It makes me. It's so funny. Bloom Into You. The idea of, and there's that moment where the two asexual characters talk to each other.
Yeah,
and he's like, it's golly. Bloom Into You is such a piece of art. When you went out and you found these different stories, did you intend to be able to tell such a range of sexual experience across. Yeah.
You know, it actually, I mean, the horse I rode in on to Sentai was Love Stage, and Love Stage threw, and Sentai threw Hitarijume at me because they had it and it was only a year old, and they're like, "Listen, if we're going to dub that, why don't we dub this?"
Yeah.
And I'll tell you the truth. I went home and I watched Hitarijume My Hero, and I had two reactions. The first one was, I loved it. I loved the characters. I loved the heart of the show. I loved the things it had to say.
Yeah.
And the other reaction was, we can't dub this. This
Really?
is about a teacher and a student. People are going to freak out. I don't want to stand at a pulpit and say, brothers and sisters, I am here to tell you a story of yourselves. Here's a story about a teacher in love with a student. Never mind. So I was really nervous about it, and I turned it down a couple of times. And like Sentai had to come back to me with it a couple of times, and I was like, okay, fine, we'll do it. We'll do it. I think your audience is going to get pissed, and I'm worried about what that might do to the rest of the shows I want to do under this umbrella, but I'm going to do my best with it, and I'm going to try to tell it as heartfelt a story as I can render. And I mean, as soon as I started working on it and really getting inside of it and reworking the script and getting into casting, I was like, oh, I get it. But the thing that really changed my perception of that was I saw the film Call Me By Your Name, which is just extraordinary. And it's a Timothy Chalamet and Armie Hammer film. And just an amazing film. And in this film, there's a somewhat similar age difference between these two characters, a somewhat similar station difference, although not a teacher. One is a grad student teaching assistant, and one is the son of his, boss. But very quickly in that film, all of the obstacles that they face because of age and station take an immediate backseat to all the emotional things in their way, and you're immediately rooting for them. And I thought, if we can strike a chord like that in Hitarijume, then I think this story can be valid and valuable. And that's what I wanted it to be, was valuable. I didn't just want to tell some garish story about a high school kid and with it, we don't need any more of those.
We don't. Because it's happening in real life too much.
Yeah. And then, but it was Sentai that got, when Bloom Into You came up for option, when the license became available, some folks at Sentai told me about it coming up and described it to me, and I started looking into the show, which I didn't know before. And I encouraged them with all my heart to go after it and go after it hard. And there were a lot of other interested parties. It was quite a war.
Really?
Yeah.
You?
Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm glad to hear.
Yeah. So, that wasn't initially my idea. But as soon as I found out about it, I was clapping along,
Okay.
Same with Kase-san. Kase-san was not, I wasn't even aware of it. Until Sentai licensed it and they told me about it. And I was like, great.
Yeah.
Let's do it. So there were people working, Sentai, when I was directing there were a number of people, in the office working in various departments, in marketing and in quality control and, other departments, who kind of had their eyes out for this material and would tell me about things and would, give me a little heads up when they knew a show was coming down the pike. You know what I mean? So I had a lot of people at Sentai really looking, who were excited about what I was there to do and were helping to feed that fire. It was a wonderful experience.
That's I'm excited. The breadth of, I always tell people, because when I'm in the anime community so much because we did so many shows that it was rare that I was at church other than the Church of Anime. I was often at the Church of Anime, and I consider myself. So my master's degree is in divinity, and I could walk out of this shop right now and go down the street and buy a building and start a church in this Midwest town, and I would imagine we would be rocking and rolling in a few weeks. So instead, I take all that enthusiasm and I bring that to conventions, and I'm always excited to chat about a story, to talk about. And when I get the opportunity to be at church, oh my gosh, how many times I've quoted the Lego movie in like you'll be like, oh, when they're talking about this particular passage of scripture, I'll be like, do you remember that time that Emmett got up on the ship and he's like, hey, everybody, you guys are all so talented, but you can't because you won't follow the rules and you can't save the day because none of you. And I'm like, that's right, you gotta follow the rules. So their storytelling is so powerful. I will get up, David, once a month as a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. We get to storm the pulpit, and it's almost a no holds bar. If you've been in a ward where somebody's definitely taken advantage of that, like beyond where they probably should, you'll get the bishoprics. And I'd like to remind everybody that testimony is a brief sharing of your relationship, right? Brief. Did I mention brief? It's definitely brief.
Mm-hmm.
So like in my head, because I'm such a rules guy, I'm like, you got 7 minutes or less. You have to testify of a doctrine or principle. You can tell one story, and then it has to be tied to the principle, and then you get your ass out of there, and you go sit back down in the pew and give someone else a chance to talk. But I'll get up there, very emotional meeting's going great, and be like, and I watched Star Wars Episode 2 in that scene where Anakin and Count Dooku are talking, and he tells him to cut off his head. And that's just like in the Book of Mormon, where Nephi was commanded by the angel. Exactly. Like, is he being? I feel he's way too serious for this to be a joke. I think he actually is. But to me, like, the scriptures have opened up, and the heavens are speaking, and these stories are being told. And as a religious person, I can either participate in the narrative, and I can talk about it, and we can be realistic about our experience, or I can let people's experience with religion be like what you did, where they're telling people not to question anything, and they're browbeating people for being different. And like, somebody out there has got to be the rebel with long hair who's upsetting the apple cart, right? Like, it's so crazy. You'll be in these meetings and listen, and I'm like, Jesus got kicked out of there. Do you remember? Like,
yeah,
I was messing with the authority. He was countercultural. He was a revolutionary. The dude hung out with the prostitutes and the tax collectors and right? Like, that was a bad dude. Like, we have to understand. So like, I spend so much time in this community that I forget that there's a world out there that isn't as accepting as the breadth of story that we're getting in anime. Yeah.
Well, and look at the community it's given rise to. You see them virtually every weekend when we're not in quarantine, right? Like, the amount of acceptance and warmth among anime fans for other anime fans, it's like virtually nothing else I've ever seen. Certainly nothing I've ever seen in such large quantity. It's like this is a place we all go to, these conventions, to these functions, to be accepted and welcomed, and like, and it's just like, it always moves me. I'm always moved by it, because God knows when I was a kid, there was none of this, none of it. And I like, man, I really feel like I missed out on some important stuff. I mean, I found my own way around it, and now as a baby in an adult man's body, I get to sort of experience it anew. Which is wonderful. But like, these fans. And that's why I always knew that it just was going to take an alignment of poles to like create the electricity necessary for the queer centric storytelling to land on an audience, and in order to reach out to a larger audience, the first thing I have to do, and I'm still working on this angle, is to get the existing fan base to appreciate what it is. I gotta get the Fujoshi and the Fudanshi on my side. I gotta get them talking about what I'm doing and appreciating it, so that that word can sort of carry outward into the rest of the fandom, and then outside the fandom into the actual community. And it's a stair step, but
yeah, I'm super grateful that we had like the 5 years of my life, 5.5, whenever before the zombie apocalypse, 2013 is when she wrote Colorworld, when Rachel wrote Colorworld. And it was probably, I had to find out Rachel was a writer. I like, it was a weird experience at my job. And he's like, you're amazing. You're spectacular. You're wonderful. Don't come into work on Monday. And I was like, those two ideas are different from each other. What do you mean I'm awesome, but also like, you want me to work out of the office? Like I'm ruining the vibe and I need to like go do my sales guy thing like out here. And he's like, no, like don't come back. But I'm not firing you because you're amazing. And like my business has been taken to the net. And like, okay, I don't know what's going on happening in but the universe is like trying to tell me. And so like I would read Rachel's book. I was like, well, my wife wrote this thing. I've been a supportive husband. Maybe I should like maybe care a little bit about, instead of working 120 hours a week, I'm going to take this, the unit. And then it was amazing. I'm like, honey, keep doing this. And then I would go get another job. And then the same thing would happen.
Yeah.
Like super freaking weird. And then I found myself on the couch again, reading another one of Rachel's books. And I finally, it happened a third time. And I said, when I went back, I read the first book, the second book. The second book, I was like, get a Twitter, get a Facebook, get an Instagram. You're doing something with this. This is something special. You're going to do something about it. And I told myself if it happened for a third time, I was going to walk away from the life I knew. And I was going to devote every second of my day to promoting Colorworld, to telling the story that Colorworld tells. And it happened again. And we sold our house. We did a $20,000 Kickstarter. We moved 6 people into an RV for a year and a half, and we drove around America selling books, but mostly getting from town to town off donations. Like,
yeah,
we grew this cult following, and people knew us. They're like, oh, it's Color. It's the guys in the RV. They've got 4 kids. And at the time, Cachette was like 3. We almost got deported from Canada because she ran away from the booth. And like, I'm like, Novin, where's your sister? And he's like, oh, it's with Bea. I'm like, okay, Bea's very responsible. Okay. Their 5-year-old sister is totally got under control. And then Bea would come back and be like, wait, where's Cachette? Oh, with Novin. Okay. Well, I mean, Novin's not as responsible, but he is the oldest one in the family. And then they're like, all this time they're paging overhead. I'm like, it can't be my kid, right? Because, wait, she came back without him. He came back without her. Oh my gosh, that's been my kid by the time we got to go claim Cachette, they were ready to send us back to America with a stamp on our passport that said never come back. It was crazy. But we found a community, we found people. Like Rachel's story started, gaining some traction. Jeremy starts reading the book series. And the next thing we know, we are part of a family. And I am incredibly grateful. I always tell people, they're like, what's it like? What's it like? Because there's so many people in the population as a whole that have never been to a convention. Even in 2020, they've never been. And I'm like, people take the best version of themselves, the truest version of themselves, and they let it come out at a convention because they're surrounded by other people who are trying to do the same thing. And it's an amazing experience. And without that, we would never, this whole thing, what we got to do yesterday, where we get back together and celebrate great storytelling and what it's done. I am super grateful for what has happened in the world of anime.
I think we all are, Brad. We're all grateful that you went through that, because you're a wonderful, positive force in any environment you find yourself in, or your amazing family is in you guys are a bright light and you shine on everything around you, and look at what you're doing. It's extraordinary. And so thank God you got fired 100 times.
I know. Oh man,
I'm with you, man. I got fired from almost every job I ever had.
I make a terrible employee.
Yeah.
I can't do small scale. When I think something's great, I don't want to tell 4 people about it. I want to tell 400,000 people about it. And not all business owners want to spend the kind of resources to tell their story to 400,000 people.
Oh, there is nothing harder than getting an established institution to think outside its box. And, I still encounter that every day. I mean, it took me 3 years to get a yes on Love Stage.
Did it really?
I started trying to get that show dubbed in 2015. It took a long time, and it took a lot of beating down that one door, because only Sentai had the license. They had it forever. Good night, Nicolas.
So you had done your research and knew that they were holding the license?
Yeah, what happened was, it was, after Bulat, I went on that screed I described where I was staying up all night and watching anime, and I watched Junjo, and I watched Super Lovers, and I watched all these shows, and I found Love Stage, and I knew that was the one. You had a college student who was directionless, and a college student, not a high school student, and you had in love with this boy was a movie star at the height of his career, like Leonardo DiCaprio, Titanic era movie star, who's just like, only takes 2 or 3 episodes to be like, hey, you know what? I'm gay. I love a boy. Fine. Let's go get him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I just thought that's amazing. And it was so adorable, and it was so positive, and it had such wonderful things to say and such adorable ways to say them. I was like, this is my horse. And so I started beating down doors immediately, and it took 3 years. And after, I watched that whole show, and only after I saw the last second of the OVA was I was like, okay, now I want to know who's got the license. How do I get it? And I looked it up, and I found out Sentai had the license. Man, they had it.
That's
so
great. And
and it took me 3 years to get it done. But that is, it's not because anybody was afraid, oh, it might be too gay. We're a little worried. It's just getting an establishment to think outside its box. It's enormously difficult to do. There are other studios. I'm still working on it. You know what I mean? Some other studios I occasionally work for who need a little bit more reinforcement. And so this is where I can solicit the help of all you folks.
Okay.
Go to these Twitter pages, rhymes with lamination, and tell them you want to see this stuff.
Okay, well, what do you? Okay, we know you have a list. What is there a list of stuff that is either held or is out there that we can talk specifically to?
It's difficult to answer because now, with particularly with a company like Funimation, there's the recent Sony buyout. So Sony has a lot of other interests, and I don't, they don't tell us these things. So I don't know how deep Funimation's fingers go into like these other properties. But I've been trying to get them to let me, there's Nozomi is, I think, affiliated with Sony as well. And now you've got Junjo Romantica streaming on Funimation's site. I've been begging them to let me dub it. I've been begging them.
So you're saying
them to let me dub Super Lovers.
It's a sub only?
Yeah, it's never been dubbed. Most Shonen Ai and Shoujo Ai has never been dubbed.
Yeah, how do you spell that?
Which one? The Junjo Romantica, Junjou. Romantica. It means pure romance. Yeah, 2 words.
Okay. All right. So this is our call to action. Everyone, get Funimation to allow David to produce the English dub of. Because I'm a doer. I'm not like talking is great, and I think that it moves the conversation forward. But I feel like at the end of the day, we should walk away knowing what our next step is.
Yeah.
And so two things for all of us tonight. Number one is we are going to have, because it took me until the 9th hour, the 11th hour, whatever the metaphor is.
9's up there too. That's a lot of hours, Brad.
It's a lot of hours. It took right into the last minute to get the Trevor Project fundraising page up with the fees. That meant that the money was going to go, a giant chunk of it's going to go to the Trevor Project. Didn't happen until I was texting with those guys as we were launching the panel. They were texting me to say, "Okay, check it now. Okay, check it now. I think you're good. I think you're live." So the Trevor Project donation will be here until next Friday.
Brilliant.
This has now become the kickoff for the Trevor Project fundraising campaign that we're going to do. And so everybody that's in the stream, David, anybody that's interested in the community, if you could share that. This event will live until next Friday. The Make Anime Gay Again will disappear because we're past our time, so that ticket will fall away. But the Trevor Project donation, that fundraising page, will stay there until next Friday. So everybody, if you had a good time, please share the link to this panel. Everybody that's arrived at this, share the link to the panel with friends, with interested people, with people in your community. There was a ton of straight people. I'm super pumped at how many people came to learn and be educated and ask questions and kind of like, Brad's right. What the fetch is it like? What is the gay experience like? So thank you to everybody for coming out to learn and to be educated, because I don't think advocacy moves forward until we, the people that don't understand the experience, get educated. So
hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
You get an amen for that one, Brad.
I appreciate that. Well, as the person that checks all the privilege boxes, I got to do something with it. If I'm going to be forced to be yet another white man running for president, and gosh forbid I have a budget to do so by the time I do, and I fit that stupid trope, the good news is I have history on my side, because almost every president will look like I will look by the time I finally get there.
Yeah.
But I'm going to have a hell of a cabinet. I will tell you that. I think one of the things that we're going to do that's going to shock the world, and my friend who's a political strategist who has a bachelor's in political science was like, Brad, you're out of your effing mind. To announce your cabinet before you, like, in the process of running is the equivalent of saying like you've already got it in the bag. And I'm like, well, Nick, I don't know why we would run if we didn't think that we're going to win. And so yeah. I'm tired of.
You want to vote for somebody who hasn't thought about these things. You know,
that's what I'm saying. Like, who on earth thinks that it's appropriate and reasonable to think from you run in November and then you get elected and you have then till January? Who thinks that's enough time to put somebody in charge of agriculture, science, education? Like, are you?
Well, I can think of one guy.
Do you know that we now live in an age in which the most number of unoccupied positions in our government, we have never seen the unprecedented level of lack of leadership. And when I mean that in a scientific term. I mean, literally, there are positions in government that are over huge, important organizations that remain unfilled because couldn't find anybody to be a yes man. And they wanted control over. There's a great Patriot Act in which they talk about the civil rights that have been eroded in the last 3 years. Yeah. And it's been done not by the creation of oppressive laws, but by the removal of protections that have been in place for years since civil rights started, that have removed protections from people that have been built up. So please, everyone, go out to vote. Please, everyone.
Oh my God, please.
Please vote.
Yes.
Please go donate to the Trevor Project. Please help save a life. Please help David tell a story. Everybody, those are three, I hope, really good takeaways from tonight, is that you now have the knowledge, which means Uncle Ben said you have the responsibility. and then let's do something with it. So, David, any parting shots, my friend, before we as advertised went well beyond our 90 minutes.
Indeed. We
Job
knew
well-
that would happen.
job well
I mean,
done.
all of us here knew that would happen, right?
Yeah, job well done by us. So, any parting shots that you want to? Was there anything that you hoped would be a takeaway from tonight that you want to explicitly state now?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think this has been a lovely conversation, and it, you know, it took me places I didn't expect. That's what's perfect about these things, right? So I think this was really great, and it was really valuable, and I really appreciate you, Brad. You know, facilitating an opportunity for us to talk about this, and also let me just tell you, first online convention. It's like I've never come anywhere close to an online convention.
Yeah.
And as I was telling you earlier today, now I want all conventions to be online conventions. But, you know, we missed the group dynamic.
Yeah.
We'll get that back. We're going to get that back when this whole cloud of miasma passes by us. But this has just been, I mean, that was, you know, I wouldn't say I was skeptical, but I was like, I didn't know what to expect from this experience. And it's just been such a delight. And I know that you guys have been working like 68 hours a day
so much
to make this happen.
Yeah.
And I just want to thank you for that. You've done an extraordinary job here. And you guys, so that you know at home, in the background here, backstage, it's been so well run. It's just been so well managed. And I would do this forever.
Thank you. Well, then that means that we're going to be able to have you back then, I hope.
Oh, yes. You will have to fight me off.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time, David. I'm going to go grab something to eat. I'm going to change.
Is it the first thing you've eaten today?
What is?
Will it be the first thing you've eaten today?
Not the first. But Rachel and I had talked about what we were going to do in like dinner. And then something happened on the other side of the yard. We were fortunate enough to buy a property that there was a built-in shop, that we just live in a community in which everyone, the homes are built in the 1890s and the early 1900s. Oh, David, I am a sucker for old houses.
Oh, yeah.
And every one of them has a back building. And so we literally went from having to pay a mortgage, having to pay shop rent, having to drive between the two.
Yeah.
Right. We used the proceeds during the zombie apocalypse. All the money I had left to my name was in my house. It was either in inventory, because I had 10 conventions in March. I had to buy inventory ahead of that for 10 conventions, right? Because you can't do 3 shows and then order inventory or make it, because we physically make these. We can only and so we had to prepare. So when the stuff hit the fan, I was at 0. And the only money to my name was my house. So we sold the house and we used the money to buy a house in cash. Because I'd essentially, when you pay your mortgage, you save that money.
Right.
It's called being house rich but cash poor.
Right.
So, but we found a place in America, big house, less than half the price of my old house, and we don't have to pay shop rent anymore.
Yeah, with a workspace. That's brilliant. That's brilliant, man.
Well, when you're in charge and like everything goes to hell in a handbasket, thank heavens you have the guy that's like, that's my job title at Colorworld, is like when things go wrong, they're like, they have a saying at Colorworld, when something goes wrong, employees will say to each other, look, at least we're not Brad. Like, I have gotten the van's locked up in a parking garage in downtown. How do I get it out?
I think I was there for that.
Were you?
Did that happen at a Oh no, it was something associated with that. There was
because I literally got a call from a teammate that was in another city, and I have had to get on my phone and say, where are you at? Don't worry. I'm a pro. Tell me where you're at. Just tell me the name of a restaurant in the city where does your phone say you are? Okay. Let me tell you where to put a 15-foot, 12-passenger van. Don't worry. I'm sending you the address right now. Like the things, but that's okay because that's my brain, right?
You're Ray.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You're not totally wrong. You're not totally wrong.
If you let that ponytail out, is your hair green?
I feel like I need a change now. Now that I do this, and it's so freaking funny that I see myself as Gagiel and you play Gagiel, and now I have been made aware of how much Ray I am, and you are freaking Ray too. Okay. So thank you for giving me representation in anime. It has been spectacular.
I'm here for you, baby.
David, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you, Brad. This has been extraordinary. Thank you, everyone who showed up and stayed late and listened to us ramble on like idiots. You guys are awesome.
The best.
And I hope that we get to see each other in person again soon.
Yeah, soon.
Or maybe for the first time in some cases. I want to meet all you guys. It's like, hopefully we'll get back on we'll get back on the ground. We'll get back in a room together and
should we still hug you?
It out.
Should we? Is that like, I know people are going to have to decide what's appropriate coming up.
I'm always open for a hug.
Okay.
Forget about it.
Okay. So you heard it here. If you would like to meet David, you have a hug. If everybody else gives you the Heisman, then David will take you in.
I'm your hugger.
Yes.
I'm your hugger.
Okay. Thank you, David, so much for your time. I cannot wait to see you again, my friend.
Cheers, my brother. You're beautiful.
Thank you. All right, we'll see you somewhere in America on the internet.
Somewhere in America. Cheers, you guys. Mwah. Kisses.